So good evening, everyone. Welcome. Yes, it's great to see so many people here in person again. I mean, last month we had the records, the room was full. How many people are here for the first time? Okay, great. Yeah, that's amazing to see. So welcome to the July edition of JoziPug. Just some logistics for those who are online. Just make sure you're keeping yourself on mute during the course of the session. We will be opening up for questions and that during the course of the event. So if you do have any questions, pop it into the meeting chat. We are recording this as well, and we will be posting it up to our YouTube channel. I think we missed the recordings from last month, unfortunately, with all the drama just before the start. But we've got all the other events on there. So if you've missed anything, go in there, check it out. So just the agenda for today, we're going to go through in the news, just some of the things that are coming out. We've then got Karika talking about AI in the Power Platform and all the awesome things that you can do inside there. We've added so much stuff in there, and every time I look, there's some new things that are coming in. We're then going to have a look. David's going to take us through our tech tip. Who's doing the advanced Canvas app components? Are you also doing that? Okay. David's going to take us through both of those. And then we're going to have a community discussion, just understanding the feedback and topics from Build. We did discuss this in the last meetup. There has been some time now for you to digest some of the information that has come through. So we'd just like to get your thoughts on what you are thinking. Are you starting to use some of these things? And then we'll just have an open floor at the end. Okay. Any questions before we get going? Comments? David, you don't want to do the announcement now quickly? Yeah.
So I actually wanted to do it after the news, but that's fine. We'll do it now. So Karika, do you want to come and join me in the front here quickly? So there's always a big discussion about, do people get the job and then they start doing it, or do people start doing the job and then they get the position? And in Karika's case, it definitely has been a case where she's been just stepping up to the plate. She's been so helpful in arranging these events, and she's been an absolute godsend. So we decided to include her in the leadership team for the meetup and for the user group. So Karika, welcome, and we can already see such a huge improvement in the way that we organize things. So it's just, in a month we've been seeing a massive improvement. So it's a breath of fresh air. Thank you so much for joining, and we're proud to have you part of the team.
Thanks, David. Hey, so let's just hop into the. Yeah, I know we will. Don't worry. Don't worry. Okay, some cool things coming out. Customer managed keys in the Power Platform is now generally available. Okay, what this means is we've always encrypted data at rest, but this was using Microsoft managed keys. There was another option where you could bring your own key, but the problem with bringing your own key is it locked you out of some of the services. Because now you're encrypting it with your own key, some of our backend services wouldn't be able to decrypt that information for things like search and a couple of the other items inside there. But with customer managed keys, you can now access all of that information still. So you have the flexibility of being able to add that additional layer of security by utilizing your own keys without having all the restrictions of bring your own keys that we had in the past. So this has been something that's been waiting for a while, and it's great to see that's now GA. Next one, also an exciting one, Excel to table to app. So now while you're busy with the app building process, you get to a part where you can start building out a table. You can take an Excel spreadsheet, drag it into the experience. It's going to create that table for you. And then from there, create the app in just a couple of steps. Oh, you're going to be taking us through the slides? Sorry about that. But you can see that. Yeah. There we go. But what's great about this, the app that it creates fully dynamic. So regardless of what device you're accessing it on, it's going to be able to be viewed all right. You can see there. I don't know how many times I've been in a situation where people have got this great spreadsheet and now they want to turn it into an app, and it's usually a process to go through. So once again, we're just removing some of those barriers and making it so that you can get up and running as quick as possible. Next exciting one, Co-authoring in Modern App Designer is now GA. Okay, what this means is you and multiple people can work on the same model-driven app at the same time. Just a couple of caveats to remember. There is no autosave. Okay, so you still need to go in and save it yourself. One maker can save it for everyone at the same time so that you can save everyone else's changes. Also, any uncommitted changes are removed after 8 hours. Okay, so if they haven't been committed in 8 hours, it is going to be removed. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Also, any changes made in the forms or the view designer won't be synced through until they are saved, and it is refreshed after that. Okay. I've got no idea why it's 8 hours. Probably. I mean, we've been in those situations before, so, but this is going to help. Note, this is only for model-driven apps, okay, not for Canvas apps. Canvas apps, it is called something different. It is co-presence, I think it's called. And what that does is it enables multiple people to log into the same app, but only one person can edit. Okay, what this means is your helpers, so the people that are more experienced can sit and see what you're doing, or if they're learning, they can watch through that experience. They won't be able to make changes, read-only mode, but at least that way you can have multiple people logging in. Okay. Essentially, yeah, but instead of the screen, so they're just opening up a browser without the audio. We've also added some more modern controls. So you'll see we've got the classic controls, and now we've got the new banner with modern. So this is going to make some more modernized changes around the buttons, the drop-down controls, and all of that inside of the app. So this way you can start bringing in a more modern look and feel to your applications. And then the last one I want to touch on, oh, two more. So there is now shared device mode for Power Apps on Android is generally available. Okay, this was a challenge for shared devices in the past because you would have to sign into the Power Apps and then sign out afterwards. Remember, with shared device mode, you pick up the phone, you sign in, that should sign into all of your applications. And when you sign out, it should sign out of all of them. This wasn't possible up until recently. Now at least you can manage this. I mean, we've seen how more and more, especially frontline workers, are utilizing shared device mode. This just helps enable that experience a bit better. We also GA for wrap in Power Apps. So for those of you who do want to deploy apps in the more traditional way, being able to package them, remember when you are wrapping an app, you're not going to take it and just put it on the Google Play Store. You're not going to put it on the iOS Store. This is more to handle distribution to your users, and that way it behaves like a traditional app. Okay, so it's just wrapping it and allowing you to push it down through the various business stores or through Intune or whatever else you are using. Yeah, yeah. No, it is really cool. Been a request that's come out for a while now. Yes, yeah, it really is. Other one, we've updated the Power Automate mobile app. So this is great if you want to approve any approvals that are coming through. You can start creating workflows, editing workflows in there. You even have the ability now to create widgets on your device as well to give shortcuts to some of your tasks in that you do. Great new experience. Check it out and play around with it. We're already seeing it being utilized a lot more. And with that, that's everything I've got for in the news. Has anyone else picked up anything that they would like to discuss? Yeah. Okay, any comments from anyone online? Let me just check here quickly. Okay. Perfect. Okay, so next we're going to hand over to Karika to redo what I've just shown you. And then we'll hand over to David.
Testing. Hello. Is it working? Okay, great. Let me put that in the pocket. I promise I won't be standing behind the podium the whole evening. I did not bring my clicker. I won an awesome clicker through our JoziPug community group. JoziPug, yeah, there we go. We've got a new mascot. Okay, cool. Let's start with the slides. Do I have it now? Perfect. So I'll talk about that as well. So let's start with the presentation first, because I like presentations because we can get to make them look pretty. Because why not? So I'm just going to talk a little bit on what is new in the Power Platform. As Jonathan has already mentioned, he's gone over some news, which is great. But there was one that I didn't see, which I'm very excited about. So the first set of news that I would like to share that's interesting for me is having the catalog in Power Apps. So very similar when you go onto the Google Play Store or you go to Microsoft Store and you get your apps, you can now have a catalog for your Power Apps that's been created inside of your company. Because if you think about banks especially, and I've recently actually seen such a scenario where people go, all the sort of divisions have created what they require, right? But they could have actually just gone to a catalog and see like, oh, this existed already, instead of having to spend more budget and building their own set of apps. So this is coming. I don't know about the general availability and all of that. And I'm putting the disclaimer out now. I'm not talking licensing at all. Please go and read up on that. I will talk about the
speak
first.
To Michael about that. Okay.
There we go.
Michael's not yet to defend himself, so we'll nominate him. Okay.
Exactly. There we go. Anything licensing is Michael, and not the mic call. Next up, we've got Microsoft Fabric. So this one was interesting for me. At first, I was like, what has Microsoft Fabric got to do with the Power Platform? But it actually has quite a lot to do with it, because Power BI falls in that space as well. And very soon, from what I've seen with another Michael, who presented as part of the data community here, he actually mentioned that there's going to be a plugin. It's not yet available, but a plugin for Dataverse is going to fit into the Microsoft Fabric as well. So what I've heard about the Microsoft Fabric is, as we've got OneDrive for all our files and everything like that, we're going to have, I think it's a One Lake. Yes, One Lake, where we've got all our data sitting under one thing. And then you get to call everything that you need from this Microsoft Fabric. Excuse me if I don't know enough about it, but it's not really my expertise or forte, if you want to call it.
So, do you think there would be value in us having a short session on Fabric?
I think so, especially seeing how Dataverse would tie into it and how Power BI ties in it. I think that would be great. Anyway, everybody else keen? Yes. Yeah, so it's a go. Exactly. So because I don't have a lot that I can say about Microsoft Fabric, I just would like to play a short video on it. And apologies if this has been played before, but there we go.
It's time to empower people to activate the potential of data, to bridge the gap between data and intelligence. Introducing Microsoft Fabric, an open and governed human-centered solution that integrates all your data and tools. With Microsoft Fabric, data engineers can visually integrate data from multiple sources. Data scientists can model and transform data. Data analysts can bring together more data sets and enable deeper insights. Data stewards can govern data and eliminate sprawl. Business users can work directly with data, uncovering and shaping the intelligence they need to make critical decisions that drive innovation. And by breaking down every barrier and equipping every data professional with access to every tool, your organization creates intelligence faster. Now your teams can all work seamlessly from a single data foundation in Microsoft Fabric with consistency across all your analytics workloads. AI-powered features like Copilot help your teams connect data sources, build machine learning models, and visualize results at the speed of thought. Intelligence securely flows to the applications where people work, helping them make better decisions for transformative impact. And persistent governance helps ensure compliance and security when users access and collaborate with data. Empower your teams. Unlock your data potential. Transform your organization. Microsoft Fabric.
So that's very exciting, right? That gets me very excited, especially the parts or the demos I've seen with Power BI and Copilot in Power BI, how you can just like write the kind of statistics that you're looking for from your data, and it builds you a proper functioning report where you can deep dive into it. So that was very exciting for me. It's a great marketing video from Microsoft. Exactly. All the bells and whistles we know. Hence, I'm not talking about licensing. And now, as we know, and you should have heard by now, Copilot everything, right? So for everything, and this is particularly just Power Platform driven, I will be taking you through some examples of how you can use Copilot in the Power Platform. But Copilot's getting rolled out everywhere. I mean, we've got Copilot for Windows, we've got Copilot for VS Code, exactly. And even GitHub has got its own Copilot. So there's a lot. There's a lot happening.
No, they're different implementations. Yeah. So depending on
GitHub
whether
one.
you're working with Teams or whether you're working with Power BI, it's a separate instance. It's got its own integration layer between that and the large language models and everything else. So depending on the solution, it's going to depend on which one you're using.
That's actually a good question. Thank you for that's a great insight. I don't know. I was like, it's ChatGPT for all of them. So that's a great insight. It is. It is. Absolutely love it. So as you know, we've got, first of all, as Jonathan pointed out, we've got Copilot now in Power Apps, and I'll take you through a demo just to show that it's not just, you can literally just take an Excel spreadsheet and it creates an app for you. But something that's important to note is your environment that you use to get this little blocky here, it needs to be USA. So it's currently not available in South Africa. Like I'll show you a difference when I jump to the demo, what the different pages look like. So just to get access to that, you're going to have to create a developer environment. Just create your region as USA, and you'll be able to play around with Copilot. So let's go and build a Power App from Excel. But there's a few things to note. So the first thing is that there are no tables required. So previously, if you wanted to import anything from Excel, or if you want to use Excel in Power Automate, I don't know if it changed that, but when creating an app through Power Apps, you don't need tables. However, when having that Excel spreadsheet, it's only going to take the data on the first sheet. Irrespective of how many tabs you have in that spreadsheet, it's only going to take the first one. And then it's very important how you structure your data. So you can't have a table sitting this side, a table sitting that side, because it's going to like fill in blanks and see it as data. So there's some places where it's still wonky, but if you've got a nice structure, it works. And then, yeah, formulas are fine. So it can pull through. Formulas doesn't stop it. So I'm just going to jump into a little demo quickly and show you. Are there any questions so far? No. Good. Let me just open this page. The joy of working on a big screen. Okay, cool. So I'll show you some Copilot functionality and some how you import the spreadsheet. So I'm just for this purpose, I'm going to extend so that I don't have to watch like this the whole time. Let's just extend quickly, duplicate, okay, because I am on extend. Let's just get that one. Perfect. I'm sure you can. I don't know what you're going to get as a result, but Use the full suite. So what we're going to do is for the Excel example, we're going to say start with data. And then we're going to say upload an Excel file. So then I'm going to select a file from the device. And I should just navigate to the right file, hopefully. Some JoziPug. Hey? There we go. JoziPug, AI awesomeness. Let's take the Excel to app. But before we do that, let me just show you what that Excel file actually looks like before I import it. So yes, I used ChatGPT to build this table for me. That was a lot of fun. So I asked ChatGPT to give me a list of Disney-inspired characters. Let me just share this as well. I don't know why I didn't show it. Hey? Yeah, but didn't I say duplicate though? Yeah, I did. Not at all.
You said it doesn't have a problem with formulas. When it makes that table, are the formula columns then calculated, or are they the flat value? Does it keep the formula, or does it just bring the result?
That is a very good question. I don't know the answer to that one. I would assume that it takes the flat result at this point, but I don't know the answer to that. Yeah. Yeah.
So just on that, macros will probably be excluded when you bring it in.
I think so. Especially why I would make that assumption is if I had data sitting in different set of cells, it takes the blank cells. That's what makes me think or assume that it would only take the flat value. But that would be great to explore that. So as you can see, it's a simple spreadsheet. Like I said, I use some ChatGPT because Copilot everything, right? Good observation. We'll have to speak to Disney. So you'll see that it's a very simple spreadsheet. A great observation from Rod. So let's go and open this file. Oh, it's in use. Okay. Note that it has to be closed for you to, yeah. Let's try that again. So what it's going to do now is it's taking that Excel file, it's creating a Dataverse table. So that's the only, I would say, caveat for me is that if you don't have or use Dataverse, it's going to kind of force you to do it. Like Rod said, if you choose licensing, it's going to say use this. So it's busy building the table. It's going to create a Dataverse table, and it's going to create the columns for you as per the structure in the spreadsheet. And then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and create the app. So with limited or minimal effort, you could take your spreadsheet and create an app with it. And then what's nice is once you got this, it's not set in stone, right? So you can go and still edit. If you didn't like that it picked up this as the first name and maybe the column was something else, you could easily go and change it, rename it, change the format, you know, if you want to make it first names, if you want to be pedantic. Two. Oh, okay. Well, I don't have any calculation. I should have actually used formulas. That would have been a great example.
Through this interface, when you are creating this, you're utilizing Copilot, you can create calculated columns. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I would take whoever does, I'm doing the introductory, so whoever wants to go and advance this, do that and come join us on the next talk. Yes, we're collaborating. We're getting ideas. I love it. So now we've got our table. It imported the data from the Excel spreadsheet, and then we're going to click on Create App. So then it's literally just that, right? Got a spreadsheet, and It imported the data, it created a Dataverse table, and now it's going to create an app. The app will already be connected to your Dataverse table, the correct one. It will be a fully functional app, and then you can go change the look and feel, you can change the data types, you can even change your data sources, add more connectors, you know. But it's a great way to get, especially people who are not familiar with creating apps or don't know where to start. It's a great way for them to move away from a spreadsheet and start using an app. Because we all know Excel is not a database. And please don't stone me for saying that.
I'm sure millions of people around the globe will disagree with you.
No, I know.
Yeah.
Because Excel is not a database. Neither is SharePoint. Let's just get that right, people. Come on, we have to speak the truth here. So I'm just waiting for it to create the app. Great. So as you can see, it actually created an app, and I was super impressed with this because normally when I start a Canvas app, I just go plonk display gallery, right? I don't have like a nice display and the search. It did it so well that I was super impressed with it. And then you can just run it because it's got your data. If you want to update it, let's go update Princess Ariel's pay because obviously she's getting less than the men. We'll make it $330. Since it is like they've upgraded the movie, so she deserves it. There we go, we can update it, and you'll notice that the update is immediate. So that connector is there. It's a fully functional app. I haven't done anything to change it. And that's the capability of having that Copilot. Another thing that's really cool for me, which is new, is this functions at the top. I don't know if it's been there for a while, but this is really cool to me. So you can actually get a simulator of what your app would look like in the different types of phones. So let's take a Samsung Galaxy. And I mean, it's super fast. If you think when you're using Android Studio, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Android Studio, the amount of time you had to wait for it to generate that simulator, it was crazy. And then if you've got a tablet, you can even take tablets. A 3310, come on. You get the mini ones, have you seen? Like you get like tiny phones, but it's super cool. I digress. But anyway, and you can even rotate the screen. So what's nice with the Copilot is you get that functionality where it's, what's it? Responsive. I always forget that word. Sorry, I'm an Afrikaans person, so I get the English words wrong. So it's super responsive, and that's what you get out of the box when you build the app, which is amazing for me. Cool. So that's that. Then, just to show you, let's go office.com. Also, thank you so much for joining, everyone. Just to show you some Copilot features as well, like how you can, in a natural language, describe what you want, and it goes and kind of builds you some sort of app with data that you can start capturing. Sure.
That whole bit there. I'm assuming if the environment doesn't have Dataverse, it's not going to do anything.
With the Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, or this bit you're going to do now. I'm sure it works off.
Yeah, because
Dataverse
it works off of Dataverse, yeah.
Okay, so it's not going to just provision one and turn the environment into a, like as an admin, can I say, no, I don't want to pay for Dataverse. Can you please not do this for us?
I think so. I don't know how it works with the trials, or would it like allow you and then you have to buy capacity for the database?
If you enable trials in your environment, it would spin them up automatically. I don't know if you can block Dataverse specifically. But you can block trials being spun up. Your dev environments as well, those are at zero cost. So those are fine for you to play around with.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think anything that's not production or ready to be used for, you know, commercial purposes, you can play around with.
But that's the other thing right now. This is all in preview. Okay,
that's also true.
Yeah, you shouldn't be using any production on this for now.
Please don't use this in production. Yeah, it's cool until it's not. when someone comes next, he's like, oh, this app that I created is wonky. I don't see this Copilot block anymore because things change so rapidly. So let's say I am looking, or create me an app. As South Africans, we are so polite. Like, I feel the nudge to ask please and say thank you when using this. So sometimes it's a bit difficult creating or asking for something. It's like, just do
Yeah.
this.
I interact with Copilot on an almost daily basis. I always say please and thank you.
Yeah,
You
you
don't know
have
what's
to,
going
like,
to happen in 10 years' time.
morale is so strong. Create me an app that create me an app for a shopping list. Shopping list that I can quantify. Sorry. It's difficult asking for something on the spot, but let's see what they come up with. So I literally typed whatever I need. It could be the most simplest English. And then you'll see Copilot running here on the right-hand side saying that it's working on it. And then just like that, on the fly, it knows that you would need an ID field, which I like about that. It's added some items for me for my shopping. If I would have been more specific, like clothing, and I'm sure it would have given clothing examples. And then it actually gives me the quantity of how much I bought, and it goes ahead and give me a price, and I can go ahead and tag it. So once you're happy with that data set,
Just go in there, in the chat window, just say
sure.
create a calculated column for VAT, which
Column
is
for-
at 15% of the cost.
which is at 15% of the cost.
Yeah.
That is so cool. Yeah.
She says when you edited the Princess Ariel info, did it also update back the source Excel file? Is
No.
a live link.
Yeah, no, it won't. So the source Excel file, just to answer that question, thank you for the question, is just to get the structure of the app. So once that app is created, it's using the Dataverse table that it created to create that app. So there's no connection to that Excel file whatsoever. There we go. Excel is not a database. Word. There we go. So it added a VAT column, and it added it at, this is the 15% markup that would have been added to the price on those items. I guess you could go further and say like, okay, now I want these two calculated together. So you kind of get the gist of how you have this conversational way of building apps, and it gets the data for you, gives you some sample data, and then you can go ahead and click on create app. And then once again, it's a similar experience to what we had with the Excel spreadsheet. It's going to go ahead, create a fully functional app, which you can go ahead then and modify, add some UX to it, UI, add some more connectors if you want. I mean, integrate it with Power Automate. It's all of those things you can do because it gives you the foundation, the layout of an app that you can use, but it's fully functional. And then you have the ability to customize it further. So while that's loading, I'm just going to jump back to my presentation slides quickly. I really don't know how much time I have. Yes.
Just with that import, is there a way to now build some relational structure there to say, let's have a sheet with sales, and this is my customers, and this is all the sale items and stuff? Or is it just slap bang that whole table that you import?
You mean from a Copilot perspective?
No, from your import, your Excel sheet.
So at the moment, there's no relational thing at the moment. So I would suggest maybe if you do the import to Excel, maybe use Copilot, I don't know, to link those tables, can you?
Yeah, no, you
No.
can't. There's no relationships at this stage yet, but there's nothing stopping you from going into Dataverse and creating those relationships in between the tables and that.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
That's the best way I've heard it be ever.
Don't-
But I hope that answers your question.
Is it just Excel that you can pull into it, or can you also like use OneNote, for example?
I'm not familiar with OneNote, just Excel. And I know you can use Figma, but that was before Copilot even. You can build your pages in Figma, and then you can create an app with that. But obviously that won't have the data background. It will be the layout.
But you can also create an app from data. So on the home page, you see
Yes.
there's a place where you can choose
me just
data, and then
do
you can
that
choose SQL, you can choose Dataverse, you can choose SharePoint, a number of ones, and you're going to get that same experience now.
100%. So the from Excel is new functionality, but you can build it from any connector that has data, like Jonathan said, SharePoint, SQL. So if we go create, right? No, it isn't. It is not
It's
a database.
It's a data store. not a
Yeah.
database.
But you can use these data sources to build an app from, let's say you've got a SQL table where you've got data in, but you want to create an app for that. You can plug into that SQL. If the SQL is sitting on premise, you would need a data gateway for that. But we're not talking licensing. Yeah. Yeah, from home.
Yeah. Yeah, they are looking at updating that. So just to summarize what David said, if you're creating from SharePoint or SQL, it's going to give you that traditional legacy experience where you get the 3-screen app. That app's also not responsive.
No, it's not responsive. It comes by default in the mobile view,
Yes,
right?
mobile view.
Mm.
Yeah.
All of the wizards are just going to look at one data set, right? One SQL table,
Yeah.
one SharePoint list,
Yeah.
whatever you want.
No relations.
If you're doing anything real with it, then don't use a wizard.
Agreed. Yeah, this is really foundational. It's because of the drive in Microsoft to get your developers that's not as technical as your proper developers, so we call them citizen developers, to go ahead and create apps. So you've got someone sitting in finance that's got paper that they're pushing the whole day, and they don't want that anymore. And we know that a lot of finance people, HR people, are working off of Excel spreadsheets. It happens. We won't name names, but if they want to go and create an app, then they can do that using Power Apps and using this functionality.
Also, if you're planning to build out a serious app, that's a good place to start because it puts the containers and all of those things on the screen, which a lot of apps that I've seen in the wild could have done a lot better if it had that as the foundation. So so even if you're going to build out your relationships, and it's still a decent place to start, I'd say. A lot better than the legacy 3-screen apps.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yes. Yes. And to your point, David, I do agree. Like if you've got, once again, the starting point, you can always pull the other tables that you have in Dataverse or SharePoint, even though it's not a database. You can pull it in there and build your app and expand your app, right? Because now you've seen how the Copilot has built it. So for someone who hasn't got any experience, it would be great to see like, oh, they did this with this button. They put that text box that way. This is how they access the data. So it's a great learning opportunity as well. Yeah. 100%. Let's move along swiftly.
Next generation.
Shall we extend again and see if it works then? Okie dokie. So let's go. Is that working? Is it? Do that. The joys. We can show you Copilot and then that happens. Oh gosh. There we go. There we go. Okay, cool. So let's just share that quickly. Okay, so we also have Copilot in Power Automate. I don't know what the time is like, so I'm just going to browse through all of the ones. You get Copilot in Power Automate, you get it in Power Virtual Agents, you get it in Power Pages, so I'll jump through them quite quickly. So very similar to what we've done with the Power Apps. It's going to go ahead and you can describe it to design it. So you can describe the type of flow you want. So I want that app that I created about the shopping list. I can say that I want a reminder every Friday afternoon because that's normally my shopping time. I want this thing to send me an email and say, remember to do your shopping. And these are the items that you need to stock up on because the stock is low. So that's what you can do with the Power Automate, and it will create that flow for you. Take your email address or the email address that you specify, and it will start, it will work. But don't take my word for it, go and play with it. It's really, really awesome. So let's just jump to the next one. This is what the screen will look like. This is where you start describing. Once again, you have to have the USA environment or region for the environment. And then they actually give you some examples, what you can start with to build that Power Automate flow. The next one I have is Copilot in Power Pages. This was pretty cool.
Next generation AI in Power Pages is revolutionizing how you build and launch data-centric websites for your business. Instead of spending hours crafting and coding websites, you can use natural language and intelligent suggestions to speed up your website building process. Now with Copilot and Power Pages, you can generate text, build forms, activate chatbots, and enable site design in seconds, all through the power of AI using natural language commands. Start building today with the go-to low-code tool that will help your organization increase productivity and rapidly build websites your customers will love at scale. All securely managed on Microsoft Power Platform. Just think it, describe it, and Power Pages will help you build it. Next.
But anyway, so Copilot in Power Pages, I absolutely love the text one. So imagine you're designing a site and you have to explain what it's about. It can actually, like similar to ChatGPT, it can give you a nice explanation on how you could word what your introduction page should be. And then as you build the text, they ask you like, was that what you're looking for? Then you can go like, no, change the tone or change this. So I really like that you can actually set the tone as well. That was something that's really cool for me. Agreed.
Yeah.
No, agreed.
You have to, just do not rely on it for any factual information. Double check what it is generating, because if you don't give it the right information, it is going to make up what it is saying.
It's true. I saw a funny meme the other day because obviously with all the Copilot going on, some developers are like, ooh, what's happening to my job? So it was funny because it said, in order for Copilot to take over developers' jobs, business needs to know what they want first. We are safe. So just in this block, you would describe the kind of text you need, share your thoughts, provide an overview, and it will pop out the text and explain. But to Rod and Jonathan's point, make sure that it's factual. So because it can pop out any sort of blurb that's available on the internet. So just be, yeah. Surprise, surprise.
And hallucinations are a real thing for large language models.
No, but it's true.
I've had some weird responses come out with some of my testing.
Is it?
Yeah. Just be aware of that.
Be aware. That's why it is in preview and not for use in production yet. 100%. So the other cool thing, it doesn't look like I have it in my slides, is where you can go ahead and create a form. So Power Pages, for those who don't know, is kind of like building the website. So Power Apps is more for internal use. That's what makes sense to me. Anyone who has a different view, please share. But for me, Power Apps is more for your internal people, the internal staff that's going to use the app inside of the company. Power Pages is for the external facing, what we want clients to interact with for our company, the forms that we want them to fill in, maybe information that we want to access, or maybe someone's out working and it's an external company that has to push data to you. That's what Power Pages are for, right? And then you can create forms using Copilot as well. So very similar to that example that I used where I created an app for my shopping. You can create a form that allows you to capture the type of items that you need to go and buy on your shopping trip to the mall. Then we've also got the chatbot preview. I haven't played around with this a lot, but you have the ability to embed your chatbot into the Power Pages, right? Yeah.
Yeah, into Power Pages and also Power Apps. So you can embed a Power Virtual Agent chatbot in Power Apps, Canvas apps.
Oh, cool.
As well as a Copilot chatbot in Power Apps.
That's what that functionality does.
No, there's another functionality.
We could
Copilot and put it onto a page in a Power App.
Oh, great. That's nice. So fascinating. Yeah, that's very cool. I like that. Okay, cool. Then we've also got Copilot in Power Virtual Agents. I played around with this a little bit, but I think I haven't played around with Power Virtual Agents enough to understand quite the gist of what it does. But what I did see is very similar once again. I am looking for this kind of information and it creates the topics for you, which is great because you know when you have to build, for those who have built bots before, you have to go and create those topics. So you have to think about what the language is that someone will use, the suggestive text that they will put in, and then you build your flow around that, right? Correct. Something to that effect. Aye.
Just David's comment. It's AI building AI. Inception. AI Inception.
AI Inception. But that's Copilot in Power Virtual Agents. Please go try it out. I'm still playing around with that and learning more about it. The next one is Copilot in Power BI. I promise I'm almost done boring you with all the Copilot stuff. But this one is...
Let's take a look at how Copilot in Power BI is empowering everyone to quickly find and share insights. For example, say I'm a sales analyst for a hotel and resorts company. Now, with Copilot in Power BI, I can simply describe the report I want to build and get insights in seconds. Maybe we need a new report to help us understand the profile of our customers, to gain insights into what is driving return visits to our properties. I just describe what I need, and Copilot will automatically analyze my data and create a new report based on my needs. Immediately, Copilot created a new Power BI report that is fully interactive, and I can start slicing and dicing my data to explore deeper. Copilot added the charts and slicers I requested, but also conveniently gives me options to adjust the output to get just what I'm looking for. For example, let's switch to ask for metrics and trends and a slightly different layout. Automatically, Copilot updates the report. Let's go ahead and keep this report page, but it goes much further. I can also ask analysis questions such as, what are the main drivers for repeat customer visits? Copilot responds by adding a new page to my report and uses Power BI's built-in advanced analysis capabilities for finding key influencers for variables in my data. Right away, I can see that customers who purchase spa visits are the most likely to be repeat visitors, followed by those who rented sports equipment. I can easily explore Power BI's key influencer visual further to learn more. I can even automatically see the most significant segments in my data just by clicking. Now let's go back to the first page and finish up our new report. I'm going to ask Copilot to make it look like our existing sales dashboard. Copilot automatically finds and references the dashboard to adjust my report with formatting and layout to match. Best of all, I can still interact directly with the Power BI report Copilot has created. So for example, if I wanted to manually change this line chart to add the reason customers were visiting, it's easy to do with just a few clicks. Let's also change the line chart to a ribbon chart to make the data really stand out. Finally, to make the report even easier for my team to understand, I'm going to ask Copilot to add a rich text description of my data right inside the report. This narrative summary is fully dynamic, and not only does Copilot highlight interesting insights for my data, but it provides citations from where in the report the data was taken. This summary will update every time the data is refreshed, or people filter the report with new insights based on the data. And just like that, in seconds, I've created a report that would have taken hours or days to do manually. Copilot, built on top of Azure OpenAI, is truly revolutionary for how we empower everyone to find and share insights.
That's pretty amazing, hey? That's epic. For me, that gets me very excited.
Yes, but utilizing Fabric with this, we've got Copilot in Fabric, which can help you create that data model. Yes, yes. No, it's not going to go and do that. No. That assumes Copilot Power BI that you've already got your model up and running.
That's awesome. I'm really excited for that, getting to play with that, because I couldn't. That's why I'm playing the video, unfortunately. Yes.
Something that might have been touched on a bit earlier.
Yeah.
But, around how related Power BI and Copilot is to your data. They're not related. You'd have to keep updating this data set in order to get more accurate and current results.
Yeah,
Am I right
so
in saying that?
I think, yeah, if I understand the question correctly, it's updating your data and it will get the latest data, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so you would have to, you're responsible for your data, and Copilot just analyzes whatever you have in your data sets and gives you insights on that.
So it's more of a playground right now, as opposed to presentable information to a client or management. It's more to show off what's possible than it is to use.
Yeah, so at the moment, this is all in preview. It's for people to play around to see what the possibilities are. Because it takes so much resources to run, I think if you want to put this in production, it's going to cost some money. A lot of money.
Refer to Michael for
licensing. The last one I want to talk about that was really interesting for me, yeah, that you can now have Power Automate Desktop Flow custom actions. So Power Automate Desktop Flow is used for RPA, your robotic process automation. So now you can actually go and build some custom actions. So let's say you've got some options that you don't see available. You can go ahead and create your own custom action, which allows you to better integrate with your legacy applications, and maybe applications that's a bit niche. You can actually plug into that.
Now, just to be clear, custom actions is not new. It's been there for a while, but you had to go and code those from scratch.
Oh.
Now we've just made the interface layer and using low code to build the custom action.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. I didn't know that.
In the past, you could use Java or whatever else to build it.
Oh, cool. So it just made it easier. Great. So that's that. Thank you, everyone, for attending my TED Talk. Awesome.
Thanks so much, Karika. Any last questions for Karika?
Yeah.
Perfect. Anyone online? Okay. You want the handheld, or are you going to go with the... No. Yes.
So, Jonathan mentioned...
Yeah.
Okay, so you had mentioned that, let me see, I wrote this down. You said that you can, okay, so from Excel table to app, right? And in one of your slides, it said that there is no table required. So I don't know if it's the same thing you guys were talking about, or...
So usually when you're building an app from an Excel file, the data inside the app needs to be formatted as a table. Okay, so you just select it, say format as table, and then you can build out an app from that. With the latest updates though, when you're creating a table from Excel, it actually doesn't need to be formatted as a table. If we saw what Karika's Excel looked like, it was just some columns and stuff. It wasn't set up as a table. The Copilot is able to identify that and be able to create it from there. Okay.
So let's say you pulled in one table, can you then kind of like add one of the other tabs in as well? Not. So will it only then be like one screen, like one, so, and you won't be able to build on that? Okay.
Right, good. Can everybody hear me? Good, loud and clear. Thank you, Karika. That was awesome. So you might be asking, well, if AI is going to be doing all of that, what are we humans going to be doing? So I'm going to show you some stuff to keep ourselves busy with in the meantime until AI learns how to do this. So who's worked with components before? All right, so you guys are a lot more, I'm very lazy, right? I don't like to do the same thing twice. So I use the components quite a lot. So I'll spend more time building it in a component, the functionality, and then reuse it over and over again. So if you really want to look at components. Who's never built a Canvas app before? Okay, all right, welcome. So start with this. The moment you start building Canvas apps, just start doing components right off the bat. So I'm going to show you a bit of what's coming down the line and what's new in components. It's still, so Karika showed you stuff that was in preview. Okay, so that's still not in production, but it's still reasonably okay. What I'm going to show you now is still experimental. All right, so that's some very dodgy stuff. But I want you to actually start looking at it, because it also gives you a way of thinking about how you're going to structure your app, and that's absolutely critical, especially if you're going to be building out apps that scale and these sort of things. So also, Microsoft is very good. You know, it's more than just a tech company. It also teaches us little life lessons. Like, for an example, where in a world where people suffer from, instant gratification, they're making us wait. All right, so this stuff, they're teaching us, to exercise delayed gratification. This has been in experimental for over a year, so it should drop pretty soon. I know there's a big drive from Microsoft to get this into generally available. And then you might have noticed that if you're not following the Power Apps blog, I'd recommend you do so. There's some really good stuff being published on this, and you'll see that this, I think it was 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. There's the improved, enhanced components, right? So what I'm going to do today is to show you what the new components do and why it's a good idea to start using it. And I'm going to just show you 4 of the new property types. Well, there are only 4, so I'm going to show you all 4 of them so that you can see what you typically do with those. Right, so if you read this article, you'll see that it also has a link to a new learning article, which is a new consolidated docs. And that takes you through some examples of what it does and how to use it. So I'd really recommend that you go and have a look at this. Yes?
So just at the top, you've got Microsoft Learn AI Skills Challenge. It's completely free. It's a 30-day challenge. So if you go and register, and I can't confirm it, but there usually is a bit of a free exam code that you can get when you complete a challenge like this.
Can humans enter, or is it only computers? Oh, okay. All right. Okay. If you're good enough, you can get your AI to do it for you. All right, good. So what I'm going to show you is just to create a brand new Canvas app and how to incorporate these components into it. Just do a blank app, blank Canvas app, and just do right. So essentially, Karika is very good at demos. I think for the next one, or presentations, the next one I'm going to ask her to do my presentation for me. So I'm not going to show you presentations. I'm actually going to show you the actual real deal. But just so that you know, there are 4 different parameters that you can, or properties that you can pass between the app and a component. And the way to think about it is that the application sits completely separate from the component. So the component is the place where you build out your look and feel and your code and these sort of things. You incorporate that into your application, but these 2 things are actually very separate. So you need to control what gets passed from the application to the component and vice versa. And that is done through properties. So that's the way that you pass these things to between the 2. And the reason for that is you could have one component that you want to use in 100 different apps. So it doesn't actually build it into the app, it keeps it separate, so you can easily share it with other apps, but then you have to control what you pass back and throw from the app. Right, so we're going to go into components, and just before you do, you need to just go and enable under settings, there's an experimental feature. That's enhanced component property. So you have to enable that, or otherwise you're not going to get all the goodness of what I'm about to show you. Right, so let's create a new component. And let's call this just CMP for component, just to name it correctly so it's easy to use. And data. So in this one, we're going to be passing normal data between the application and the component. And to do that, we're just going to build us a very simple progress bar to just get in like a visual indication of how far something has progressed. And we're going to pass values to it, and then it's going to automatically complete the progress bar for you. Right, so first we're going to do is we're going to add some custom properties. And the first property that we're going to add is what is the total value? Well, let's do value total, so it's just grouped together. So we're now out of what's the total or the max that this thing is going to progress to, so we can get a percentage in the component. Description, just going to copy that. And here's the new bit. Here it asks you what is the kind of property that you're now working with, and in this case it's just data. We're just going to pass data to the component, and then we're going to change the visual that's displayed in the component. The others are function, event, and action, and we'll just explain that in a little more detail later on. So first off, the data. This is going to be an input property. So remember, we're working in the component now. So the input property is data that we're passing into the component from the application, from the host application. And the first thing that we want to do is this is a number. And then we want to create that property. You'll see there on the right-hand side, there's the value total. Next, we want to say what is the value progress. It's also data, it's also input, and it's also a number. And we're then going to use those two to create the percentage. Then we also just want to keep the colors dynamic. You don't want to hard code the colors because in the different applications, you might want the progress to be a different color. So you can also create properties to specify the colors in the component. So let's say first one is color fill. It's also data, it's also an input, and the data type is a color. And the next one is color progress. And it's also a color. Right, so next, we've got all of those things, all the properties that's going to be talking back to the app back and forth. Now we need to put the visuals or the controls on that's actually going to show what we're trying to do here. So the first thing we're going to do is just change the width of this component. Let's make that 30. And the height, like that, 300. All right, so there it sits. And to give it a progress, a bar of some sort, we're just going to add a shape. So we're just going to add a rectangle. All right, and that plonks it onto the screen there. But we want a vertical progress bar, so we just want to move it down. All right, so we want to put it down at the bottom of this. So to do that, we're going to say the y of this is the parent.height. minus the self.height. So it's just going to move it to the bottom. All right, so it's going to always start at the bottom of the screen, which is the Y coordinate. Now to change the color of this, simply going to go to the fill. And that property that we've defined, we can now easily access it from within the component and just simply say we want to access the component dot color progress on this one. And it's black at the moment because it's a default. We'll change the default just now. So we're going to change the fill of that, and we're also going to change the fill of the actual component itself. But that's going to be the color of the fill. Right, so if I go into the properties, those actual custom properties, I'm just going to give it some defaults that makes more sense. So the value progress, the color fill, we're going to change that to red and dark red, and we're going to do the same for we're going to do the same for the color progress, and we're going to make that green, right? All right, and there it sits. We can also just change the values to have a default that makes more sense. So if we take the value total, you'll see a default to 100. We're going to change that to the value progress and change that to 50. And now, yeah, that's the default. One last thing we need to do is just tell the height of this thing to adjust according to the actual percentage. So at the moment, you'll see the height of this little shape over here is 100. So that's not right. So we want to tell it to take the parent height and then multiply that by the percentage of the actual on top of the total. So we're just going to say the parent.height multiply the value of, the actual component value progress divided by the component value data dot value total. So that should give us 50%, and if you sort of estimate that, that's sort of 50% so my math's correct. So if I now take this, I can save this. And now on the screen, just name the first one a data component. And now to drop this into the app, remember this component actually sits completely outside of the app. It looks like it's in the same interface, but it's completely outside of it. And ultimately, you actually want to publish it in a component library, which isn't even on the same screen, so you can easily make it available. But in this case, it's even though it's shown in the same app, it's completely outside of it. So if we go to the screen, insert, custom, and drop that down there. So there's my little progress indicator. I can now hook that up into properties and data in the application to make it respond to whatever the values are in the application. So to do that, we're going to add a text input. And we're just going to say, okay, we know that's for the progress, right? So in here, let's just change that. Default to that. We're going to change the format to a number. And now we can tell the component to go and look at the property of the text value for that control. So if we go and just copy the name there, you can probably rename that. That's probably the right thing to do. So progress value. And now in this component that I added to the screen, if I go to value progress, I can just go and point it to the dot text. And you'll see at the moment it's red because there's nothing in there. If I try and trick it and I put a 2 in there, you'll see there's a small little green. If I put an 80 in there, it'll grow. And there's a very simple progress indicator that you can easily use between hundreds of apps. And that's also where the catalog is going to be becoming useful in future. So if there's somebody sitting in a completely different department, there'll be a catalog of these components. They might need one. They can go and grab it from there. They don't need to go and do all that work that we just did. So this is a very simple component, and obviously these things can grow and can become quite complex. And the more complex they become, just the more sense it makes to do it once and not repeat that effort. Any questions? Yeah, precisely. So there's what we've got today in generally available. Then there's an experimental version from a month ago, and then there's an experimental version from 2 weeks ago. And the one from a month ago gave us behavioral properties, but they've now split that out to make more sense because the behavioral properties were actually quite difficult to get your head around. So they've now split that into events and actions and all of those sort of things to make it easier to understand. Well, I hope so. Yeah, data is pretty much the same, yeah. All right, any other questions? Yes. No such thing as a select.
So building these components, as noted, what's coming is the Power Apps catalog, right? Would you be able to publish these components to that catalog and use them in there as well?
Correct. So ultimately, so I've created this component directly in the app. Ideally, you'd go through exactly the same process, but in a component library, which means it's easier to use it in multiple apps. But the way you build it is just exactly the same. Yeah. And then you'll have that component library in the catalog. So yeah, exactly. So you'll have typically you'll have a library for things like pop-ups or screen components. You might have a library for your headers and footers, yeah, and keep that consistent across the organization. So.
And David, what happens when you make updates to the component? Does it update in the apps?
Yeah, not automatically. You need to go into the app, and the moment you launch the app that uses a component, it'll tell you these updates are available. Do you want to update them? You can update it, and then it brings in the new version of the app. Then you have to, yeah. So ultimately, if you're following proper development lifecycle, you should then publish it in dev, export that, or use pipelines, get it into UAT, and then production. Yeah. Yes, Manny. Always scared when you ask a question.
So speaking about headers and footers and look and feel and standard, and is there a way that a person can enforce that across apps being built off the bat?
No, not yet. No. There's quite a lot of work being done on theming at the moment. So you have to, at the moment, to have a consistent look and feel across the apps, you actually have to jump through quite a few hoops. So typically what we'll do is we'll have a central configuration table for each of the environments where you can specify colors and these sort of things, and then you have the apps read off of those. So if there's a change in corporate colors, you can go and do it once. But that takes some proper architecture to get that right. But there's a lot of work from Microsoft being done on that.
Yeah. Components definitely help, but then also making sure that you've got the right processes in place when new apps are getting built before they get published and released to the users to make sure that they're meeting all these requirements. So you could have a workflow notification when something gets built up, admins get notified, you can go through a review process, all of that we can set up in the system. COE, there we go.
Good. So next we're going to look at functions, or the function property. Now, it's very similar. Also in the past, you could build pure functions through the behavioral properties, but then it got messy because you had to pass in parameters and you had to keep. So this is just a lot easier to navigate through. So I'm going to create another new component. So, and we call this function. And for this, we're not going to put any UI elements on the screen because it doesn't matter. We're not going to build something that's going to visually give you anything. We're going to build a simple component that calculates the financial year. So we're going to pass it a date and the last month of the financial year, and then that's going to return the actual financial year, right? So nothing visual. It's just going to give data back to the app with the financial year that date evaluated to. So to do that, we're going to create a new property, and let's call that. So ideally, your component should be called something like, let's say, fin functions. To say that fin or math or something like that, to know we're going to be doing calculations with it. Because in this one, we're going to be using it as a function from the application. So you're going to be actually calling that function. So in here, we're going to create a property. And we're going to say, let's say, calc fin year, because that'll make sense. And in here, this is going to be a, don't know where that came from. Clipboard, no. All right, so it's an input. So again, this is an output. Again, this is important to understand. So this is an output where the component is going to pass the answer back to the application, not the other way around. So this is an output property, and the data that it's going to be returning is text, because we want to give it the financial year number with a postfix of FY for financial year. All right, so as part of this, we're going to specify two parameters. So the one, and these are parameters that we're going to be we're passing the component from the app to tell it what's the date that we want to evaluate. And then the second one is what is the month in which the last month in the financial year. And then we're going to use those to compute in the component. So the one is, sorry? So the thing with Roy, I just never know if he's serious or being sarcastic. All right, so this is the date to evaluate. The data type, we're going to set to date and time. And this is required. Okay, so you can't call this function without that property or that parameter. And the next one is last month number of financial year. Is that never hard code? So yeah, probably. But all right, so then we're going to pass it the month number, and that should also be required. All right, so let's create that property. And now we're going to write that formula straight into that property. So when it gets called, it's going to compute this formula, and it's going to give it an answer back to the application. And to do that, we're going to go to that. You'll see there's the calc fin year. And if you're used to Power Apps, you see that this is quite new. There's sort of an indentation that shows the parameters that you can pass as part of this function. All right, so if I click on it and I say, no, actually, yeah, let's do that. So that is text, but we're going to change that text now. That's default. So we're going to say, who's familiar with the with function? Okay, so with, and with, we need to pass it a record, and then the code or the formula that it needs to evaluate against that record. All right, so first thing we need to do is give this a value to go and say year, adjust, and then we're simply going to say it needs to go and check if the month of the date that it needs to look at, what's the property date to evaluate? Ah, that's right, you need to call that. Why doesn't it like? No, sorry, I need to call the, sorry, calc fin. No, what am I doing wrong here? Calc fin, yeah, these. Calc fin, yeah, no, there's something else wrong here.
Can you use the output parameter as input?
Sorry?
Can you use the output property as input?
Yeah. Yeah, correct. So, yeah, the parameters are all the inputs. So I just want to check why this is not working. Really? So I should maybe try that again. So CMP. Oh, without it. Because why would it be consistent? Date to evaluate. There we go. Sorry, I don't know what I missed that. All right, so you don't have to call it. Yeah, that's right, because it's a parameter. It's context aware, so it knows it's executing inside of that property already. So we're saying that if the month of the date evaluate is greater than the last number of the number of the last month in the financial year, then, so we want to wrap that in an if. So if that is true, we want to adjust the year with a 1, otherwise it needs to be a 0. Does that make sense from a financial year perspective? So if the month falls within the next financial year, we want to increment the actual year count. And then in the formula, let's expand that. And then we're going to use a new way to do string interpolation into Canvas apps. We can do $, and then pass it a record, which means it's going to be calculated inside of that string. And we're simply going to say, take the year of the date to evaluate and add the year adjustment that we just calculated at the top. And then at the end of that, we're just going to add FY to go and say financial year. Okay. Is this going to work? I don't know. Let's see. Looks impressive. If I got that bit right, it would have been a lot more impressive. But all right, so let's see if that works. So we're going to add a new screen. And we're going to call this excellent. Yeah, precisely. Exactly. So if you want to turn, if you get to somebody to write you an ROI investment in Power of FX, then this is typically where you'll do it. Yeah, you add it to the screen, but you can just drag it into the corner. Yeah, so you can put it in the corner. Nobody puts baby in the corner, but I could see in your facial expressions there was something happening there. All right, so basically, right now we're going to add a text input. Sorry. Yeah, so this one we're going to say what is the year or the month for the financial year. So, and then just do a label as well. To say FY month. And now we're going to do a date picker. We could probably do the modern one, which would just buys me time to think. All right, and then we're going to put a text label, and this is where the actual computation is going to happen. So that text label is now going to call a component, pass it these two values as parameters, and it's going to get an answer from our function if everything goes well. Right, so let's go and put for the financial year month, we're going to put a 2. Should be FY, not FYI. Yeah, you could. But then it's when you type stuff in there on a keyboard, then sometimes it gets confused. But anyway, so, or maybe it's just me that get confused there. All right, so over here, we're going to say call the comp fin function dot calc fin year, open bracket, and now it's going to tell me it's looking for the date to evaluate, which is what I just built into the component, and it knows it needs to give it. If I don't give it that, it's going to give me an error. And the error handling is going to tell me it's expecting 2 arguments, and I only passed 0. So in the first one, I'm going to say pass it the date picker 1 dot select the date, and as the second value, we're going to pass it the text input. Yes.
I don't know if it's new, but I like the way it highlights the things you're picking. I haven't seen that before, so that's pretty cool. So you know which element like on the screen
Yeah.
you're actually looking at.
Yeah. Yeah, it's done that for a while.
Okay.
All right, so there you can see I've told it that my FY financial year month is February, and then the date is today. It picks up that this is in the 2024 financial year. So if I go and change that, let's go and see, change that to 28th of February, picks up 2023 financial year. And you can go and trick it and just change that to March, then picks up, it's still 23 financial year. If I change that to March, still 23 financial year. And if I change that back to February, instantly it changes back to 2024. So that's very useful. You don't have to call it through actions and buttons and events and all of these sort of things. Precisely that. And that's the idea. So you end up with fin functions dot calculate financial year, where you could do things like, I don't know, what are other impressive financial calculations? Any accountants in the room? Yeah, so I love how you didn't give me an answer. All right. Any questions on functions? Yes.
So in this case now, so I'm just trying to think. So say you have a Canvas app where people come in to just say log anything. They just come in, populate information, and then you want to link the date that they've logged into, the date they've logged that information to the financial year.
Mm-hmm.
So in this instance, in the date to evaluate, would you use something like today or to pick up the date from today?
Exactly.
And then will that write back into your database?
Yeah, so what,
even in the SharePoint list?
exactly. So what you'll do here is so there'll be a button or a form or something that does the patch or the form submit. And so when you do the actual patch to the database, you would actually call that function. So let's do a, what are we going to do as an example? Let's just say we're going to do a collect to call data, and we're going to pass it the records. So we're going to say date submitted is today. But then you could also say the financial year, applicable FY, and now you're going to do exactly the same thing that we did just now. You're going to call that component. I was pretty sure I killed teams. So go and call that dot calculate fin year. I'm actually just going to copy that so I don't make any other embarrassing mistakes. Yeah. Last day of month, typically those sort of calculations. So it still gives me what is it? So calc financial year. Oh, so I need to do actually, let's call a component dot. Okay, so that patch is now going to write 2 columns. Let me just expand that. You can see. Yeah, sorry. So we're going to use that and just simply, that's right. Thanks, thank you. All right, so exactly. So that's going to patch the data with the today's date, the submitted date, but then also the applicable financial year. And in that patch, it calls that component and it writes the answer back into the. Does that make sense? Right. I don't want to know what you oaks are up there. It's like some mischief happening there. Even Jonathan is giggling, so then it must be bad. All right. Any questions on that? Good. The other, just go to experimental features and just sign the indemnity form. use it in production apps, it'll be fine. Yeah, for any licensing questions, ask Michael. We'll post his cell phone number after the... No, it's not, no licensing, no. No.
Just a question on, is there any way where you can like read up more about building these kind of components, getting ideas for components to build?
Yes, what's that component? What's that? There's a site. Yeah, no, so these aren't PCFs, but there's another one completely. There's a GitHub repository that's got a lot of, and also on powerusers.microsoft.com, there's a whole gallery of components. There's actually quite a lot that gets added there. So
it's like a component marketplace. I'm just trying to remember what it was called.
Yeah, I can't remember now either.
I'll have a look and I'll share it
Okay.
with the team. I'll pop it on the meetup. Okay.
Yeah, that pop-up is actually going under massive development at the moment because, yeah. Yeah. Right, next is actions. So an action, so these two are very quick. So, stick with us. Don't, try and keep awake. So an action is essentially where the app calls the component to do something. And then the component tells the controls inside that component to do something. Because remember that it's not like you don't have that direct connection between the two. You need to go through that intermediary step. So what we're going to be doing is just simply change, put a label on the screen, or sorry, a text input, and then tell the component to reset, to just reset the defaults. And that's typically a good example of what you'll do with an action. So for the text, we're just going to rename this to default text. If you leave the room now, just stick around for the pizzas because we're thinking there's going to be plenty. All right, so there's the default text for this text input, and we're going to add a component property, and let's just say reset text. And this is going to be an action. So an action is applied onto the component from the app. So the app does the action to the component, not the other way around. And so the return type is just going to be Boolean because we're just going to say true or false. And so there's the property. And now what you can do is if you go into that property for the component, we can go and tell it. Sorry, I'm being daft here. So there shouldn't be a label. That should be in text input. Rod, why don't you correct me on that? Right, so there's the component or the control. And now we want to tell the component whenever that property is being called from the app, we want you to do something. And in this case, we're just going to tell it to reset that control. What's wrong with, why doesn't Copilot help me? It's supposed to. All right. Right, so let's call this action. So we're going to add that component onto the screen. And we're going to add a button that's going to call that component and reset it. So component.action or underscore action dot reset text. And without any parameters. You could also now pass parameters in it to break it down even further to say what is it that you want to reset or what is it that you want to do. All right, so just rename this to say reset. This is the default text. Let's go and add 1, 2, 3. And remember that's sitting in the components. It's completely outside of the app. But if I now click on the reset button, it changes. It resets that control back to the default. You could do this in the past as well, but you just simply didn't do it when there were small kids in the area because yeah, toggles are, what I do still like about toggles is if you keep the logic away from the component, you could easily just delete the component, plonk a new one on there, and your logic still stays intact. Otherwise, if you do that and you've written 8 hours worth of logic without saving, and now it's gone. All right, last one, and this is an even quicker one, and then we can get to pizzas, is events. So an event is called from the component back to the app. So think of it like you click on a button in the component, and now you want something to happen in the app. You know, keep in mind these things are separate. So we're going to go into components. We're going to do a new component. No, just one. And we're going to call that event. And to do this, we're just going to add a button. Most demos start off with a button. And we're going to say, click me. Right, and now we're going to pause. We're going to create a property that's an action property. So we're going to say on button select. That sounds sort of familiar, doesn't it? And this is an event. So it's an event that gets passed back to the app. And it's also going to be a Boolean. And again, you could pass parameters inside of that to say what was clicked and what was done, and what other settings were evident in the app, or what data states and these sort of things were evident in the app at the time of clicking on that button. And that's that pop-up component that uses that extensively. Yeah, very cool. All right, so next, let's add a screen, and we call that event. Well done, thank you. And again, we're just going to put the component on the screen. So there we go. There's my button. And now in that component property, if I go down on this list, you'll see there is on button select, we want to do a notify to say button clicked. And if you now run this and I click it, it's supposed to work. That's on button select. Let's go back into the app. Oh, sorry. The button, I didn't tell the button to actually call the component from that side. So I need to say just on select, I need to call comp event dot on button select without any parameters. And if I now do that, click on it, it gives me a pop-up to say button select. All right, so yeah, it's just, this is the way it should have been from the start, but yeah, unfortunately it wasn't. So any questions? So I'd really recommend that you start playing around with this. It's going to make your Power Apps Canvas app journey a lot easier if you just start using this up front. And it's like it's saying, if you're going to chop down a tree, spend half of the time sharpening the axe. This is sharpening your axe. If you do this properly, the rest is going to be easy.
Yeah, you would be amazed at how many times you build the same thing over and over between apps.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when I started with Power Apps some time ago, the first thing that I absolutely hated and I refused to do was to build pop-ups. What I mean by that is, if you want a confirmation thing on the screen that says, "Are you sure?" you had to put a rectangle, you had to have 2 buttons, you had to have a text, and the problem with that is now you've got 30 screens on your app. You're going to build that 30 times. Okay, if you're going to have 5 different prompts, you're going to build that 150 times if there's a potential of having that prompt on each one of the screens. And I just said no. So I've used components for that pop-up app, and that's been wonderful. It's on a project, that's the first thing I go and do is put that pop-up component on there. So. I take offense to that, actually. Oh, the component, not the pop-up. Okay, that's it. Yeah, it makes it a lot easier now. So this is the next version of that. that pop-up component that's very, I want to release it, but because it's using experimental, it's like, yeah, exactly. So, but with this one, you can do things like attachments. So, you know, so you could do simple pop-ups to just say, okay, or yes, no, and that writes that back into the application, so you can grab it there. You could do things like pen inputs. You could do text input in Office 365 user lookup. So if you go and look for Lord van Eden, or you could do attachments, and this is new. This is pretty cool. So you can go and click on it. It launches this thing. It does all of the heavy lifting for you. You don't have to go and create a dummy form, steal the attachment control, and it's like you could just off the cuff. So let's go and check. Where's that? So attachments. And like this is a good example, right? Like those pop-ups are really cool, and you want them at every screen and every app, right? But to put that together, rather than put in like 100 stuff to make that pop. If you have to do that on every screen and every app, but if you make a component, then you click. So what this thing now does, it gives you the ability to dynamically specify what kind of file types you're allowed to upload, what is the maximum size you're allowed to do, and you can tell it to force like caption and categories. Yeah, so you can go and say, give it a caption. And if you click on it, that actually writes it back into the app, so there that attachment sits. So it does the base 64 conversion for you, all of those sort of things. So you could just hook that onto a flow and then upload that. So, yeah, so this is actually ready. I'm saying it's careful. I'm actually using it in 1 or 2 projects already. It's working well, but we can't release it until the components are generally available. So, good. Any questions on components? Thank you. Yes. What is this from Sage? You could probably do an iframe. If somebody puts a gun against your head and forces you to do that, you could probably do an iframe. Yeah.
Question is why, and should you, rather than can you? Yes.
Because even when you hit that ESS page, like it's going to pop you what you decided with the app. Yeah. You might want to push it to the app, probably log in with the computer.
Yeah, and remember a lot of the times your ESS credentials and your Office credentials aren't the same, so it's going to add some confusion and complexity to it. Just provide a link, unless there's a specific reason.
Good. Any other questions? So we've got the community discussion around the build. Any other feedback from build? Anything else people have noticed? Is it good?
Yeah.
All right, good. So close up.
I think we're good. Yes, Inspire next week, everyone. Make sure you register. There's some great content coming out. There's some great events going on here as well. So check it out. Really some awesome things coming. And with that, it's great to see so many new people. Hope you enjoyed it. Please come back. If you have any ideas on things you want to see, if you want to present, it's a great time to practice and hone your presentation skills over here. It's a nice, safe community. Everyone's easygoing. So let us know. Highly unlikely. With that, everyone, thanks. Have a great evening.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, man. Thank you.